Hello, friend. You seem to have wandered into our meeting. What meeting, you ask? The meeting of the Secret Cinema Society. Join us, won't you?
Cool. Yeah. Well, Corey, man, welcome to the inaugural. I guess, or we should welcome our guests also. I'm welcoming you, but yeah, welcome to the first meeting, secret meeting of the Secret Cinema Society. It's a secret.
It's a double secret.
Yeah.
What is that?
It actually kind of is a double secret in the way that, like, I think we're thinking about it. Do you have that quote in front of you that you can go ahead and read to get us?
So this quote comes from maybe an unlikely source. The comedian Patton Oswalt. I guess that's sort of limiting, though. He is also an actor, a writer, a producer. I mean, he's been around for a long time. He's all over the place.
On the Golden State Killer.
Yes, which that's and I'm glad you made that reference. His unfortunately late wife, Michelle McNamara, incredible writer, but he is also a really terrific writer as well. And he wrote a book called Silver Screen Fiend, and it was about around the time that he was coming up in the comedy scene. He became obsessed with seeing films, and had these 5 books, and he started to obsessively check them off and like write where he saw them and put dates next to them, and it became an obsession, literally a very unhealthy obsession. But the way that he describes the people like him really felt like the description of the members of the society, because it's this unspoken, just deep rooted passion for film and things like that. So I will read it now. From his book Silver Screen Fiend. Okay, so we're talking here about the darkness of a movie theater.
Okay.
This is the sort of abyssal darkness deep sea fishes thrive on, fueling themselves on glowing volcanic vents on the ocean floor. The theater has a volcanic vent of its own, up on the wall there, big enough for a megalodon shark to swim through, or a horde of zombies to shuffle through, or a fleet of spaceships to fly through, or a teardrop on Ingrid Bergman's hopeful, heartbroken face to slip through. Me and the other deep-sea fishes inside the theater, the movie freaks, the celluloid junkies, single-star satellites and garden-variety misanthropes, loners, and sun-haters. We, too, feed from the glow pulsing off the screen. The movie screen, that's our volcanic vent.
I love that.
I know. It just
does like succinctly sort of encapsulate what we both know and feel from other people that we've met in our lives, including, each other and our friendship, where we instantly click and like have this just like need to discuss and sort of talk about movies and talk about films and favorite filmmakers and those kinds of things. It's an internal bond that we all share, and you know it when you find it.
Absolutely.
That's the kind of secret society that you're describing with that quote, and that Patton also.
We feed on it, that it keeps us alive. It sustains us.
Exactly.
And we're all here around our warmth,
which for us time and time again, it's shown to pull us closer, our bond, our friendship, and that's kind of been integral to, I think the work that we're going to be doing here on Secret Cinema Society, as well as to let everybody know also that of our previous podcast. If you haven't listened to us before, we had a podcast 5 years ago now? Is that right, Corey?
I think so. Yeah, it was we started it. I think we started it 5 years ago, and then it ran for almost a year.
A
I think
year.
it went a year.
Yeah, we did
and then
16 or 17 or so episodes, and
Right.
and that was basically the idea that, you know, we our bond has been cinema and media and our sort of passion for those and talking about and bonding over those things, and so we're kind of the same thing here, but we're like extrapolating that out to everybody is really a part of this bond that we share as well.
And you know, it's something as simple as it's the idea of community, and what it's such a powerful thing. And I think it's great that so many, sure, there are lots of negatives about the sort of pervasiveness of technology, but one thing that things like social media can do, and that can be really thrilling, is when you find someone, you know, if, like for me, to find someone selling used VHS tapes on Instagram, and then to discover that there's this whole community of people trading and buying and selling VHS tapes, all centered around this very specific type of horror film and sci-fi, but we all understand each other, and it's such a warm and welcoming thing to find.
It's like an instant fit.
It's like instant family almost, you know, because you have that bond immedially.
Well, and there's a vocabulary and a vernacular that you're already able to speak on. So it's like when you know, two minds have that same vernacular and they ping, you know, and then you like, you know, you're about to have an exciting conversation with somebody about, you know, a movie that you just saw last week, that, you know, and it's such a great way to just like kind of connect with another human being in the world of, you know, and that's what is great about cinema and about movies and television and media and music and these things that we love and love to talk about so much, is that they can bring us together. Right.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's a nice segue into talking a little bit more about Zach and I as far as specifics are concerned, because obviously most people are going to be aware right now we're still in a pandemic, which is certainly dividing people. Zach and I are not currently in the same room. We're also not currently in the same state, which we'll talk about.
2,500 miles away.
But you know, I think a lot of us certainly are very desperate for that right now. That
absolutely
human connection. But for us specifically, Zach has been a close friend of mine for 17 years, which is crazy to say out loud, because I can remember when I was only that many years old.
Right.
And I knew Zach then. So, and it's, we, you know, the thing that happens when you get older, even when you live close together, we saw each other when we could, but I think both of us probably wished that were more frequent. And then Zach decided to be really selfish and move halfway across the country and make it even more difficult. So one of the really exciting things about this show for us on a selfish level is just the opportunity for us to get to hang out and you know, basically have these conversations that we would have normally had, you know, if we did get together, but do it in a more focused way, and then including the community at large with that, because it's just as important to connect
and it's
outside of your own circle.
So much fun to share kind of like what we find exciting, you know, and I think where, you know, we have a lot of chemistry and get super like wrapped up in like talking about these things. And you can feel, you know, at least, you know, I know you felt it and I felt it, where it's just like, you feel the like sort of excitement that we're kind of piecing together these thoughts that we wouldn't have otherwise. And it's just like, and we can kind of bring that to other people as well. And I know I love to listen to podcasts about movies and, you know, listen to other people's thoughts, you know, go ahead and shout out Star Wars Minute again. One of Corey and I's favorite podcasts, Alex and Pete, very, very much a catalyst for us. I think that podcast brought us together in our thought process of like wanting to do a podcast and knowing that we, I think, had something that we could offer in this format. And I think, that's exactly what we're excited to be able to share our conversations, because I think that we do make like really insightful points and come to really exciting, like sort of new levels of understanding and comprehension of film in as a whole through just talking. And we just get to learn about new movies and films that I haven't seen, that you haven't seen, that everybody, somebody's gonna find something that they're not, familiar with, and they're going to discover something new, and that's exciting too. And that's part of, I think, what this whole thing is about as well. It's just like that sharing of media, and that I've always loved that. I mean, that's part of what Corey and I have always bonded over, and I'm indebted to Corey because he has, early on was always a movie buff, and kind of I loved movies and is always a part of my childhood. My grandfather had VHS tapes with like, Back to the Future and Indiana Jones, but like just the sequels. And like, so like I had these things too, but Corey definitely took my fandom and interest to the next level. And just, so we've always been sharing movies and media and having conversations about them for like our entire friendship. And, I think that just pretty much, encapsulates our bond. And now we're to a point where I think it's just like, it's exciting to get to share these conversations, because I think we're reaching like new heights together.
Yeah. And I think, we can fill in some of the blank spots here and give a little backstory for our people. I am currently an English teacher at Smyrna High School, which weirdly enough is where I graduated from high school. Also,
we went to high. Yeah, that's
where we went to high school. Yeah,
very crazy that you teach there. That's surreal.
It is. It's surreal
like
every
though.
single
like,
thing.
You're imparting those things onto like the kids that we were. Like it's almost like you're.
You're teaching. And it's cool. It's cool to like see little Zachs and little Corys, to recognize that in
cool.
students. That's awesome. But Zach and I were actually in the same second grade class, which is where we that's our origin point that we like to date back to.
Yep.
And so we knew each other then, but it wasn't
just, children and like
the way that children do. Yeah. So then,
but
right. Then in 8th grade, we were in the same mini school, and the thing that I think brought us together first was skateboarding.
It is, yeah.
Zach is, which I'm sure he'll discuss this in his bio, which I can't wait to hear. And he was a skateboarder. He was already a skateboarder, and my friend Justin Thompson, shout out to JT. Who I've also known since 2nd grade.
Yep.
He and I had just started skateboarding, and we were kind of just dipping our toes into the subculture. And we had just started getting a big thing, especially during this time period, because we didn't have online stores. Getting catalogs in the mail was this really thrilling thing. And you would flip through and you would look at the decks that you wanted and the shoes. And one of the shoes that Justin and I both were obsessed with, they were these god-awful, disgustingly ugly shoes called the Osiris D3s.
Oh, those.
And they were literally the ugliest shoes. I implore our listeners to go online right now and look them up. But I also do want to note that for some reason, shoes like that, chunky shoes like that, are coming back into style. Yeah, I know. It's really weird.
They've come back into the fold. Like D3 is like a huge selling shoe again. It's really crazy.
Oh, that's so weird. Okay, so anyway, we're at the beginning of the year, the very beginning of 8th grade. We see Zach in the gym. This is like in the gym when they used to, like they divvied up the kids to where they were going. We were in the gym and they were
god-awful shoes that Corey's describing.
He's wearing the chunky D3s, and Justin and I are like, oh my God, this is obviously the coolest person in the world, and we have to figure out who he is and become his friend. And that's what we did. And Zach was already into skateboarding way more than us. He had real skateboarding clothes and a real skateboard, and we were just like blown away. And he had skate videos, and we were like, wow. So we all became really close in 8th grade. And then from
Very
there,
much
it just continued. There was a brief gap after we graduated high school, but even after that, we kind of refound one another, and then remained close
It's
3 years,
stayed
and
strong. Yeah.
it has
No,
sustained. And I do think, as you were saying, skateboarding was kind of that first thing, but we immediately, we would have sleepovers. We were still young enough to do that, and
watch like 4 movies in like one
yeah,
night.
we would just watch movies
Yeah.
all night. Yeah, so it was even, starting from there that we started to kind of exchange experiences with film, and recommending things to one another and watching them together, and it just really expanded from there, and has always been kind of a cornerstone to this long lasting friendship. That's more of a history of the friendship there. So my bio, I'll give you a quick bio to my listeners. I live in Murfreesboro in a house that I own somehow with my beautiful wife. We've got our wonderful 7-year-old kiddo, Emmeline, who is ball of energy all the time. And we both are high school English teachers. She teaches at Smyrna High School as well. And it's and that's pretty much, that's what I do a lot. So this is it's also nice to have an opportunity to do this show, to have a little project, that's not related to grading things or worrying about ACT scores for juniors. And
getting to invest something in your passion, invest some time into what you love to talk about and what you enjoy. Yeah,
because I don't enjoy teaching or any of that. I hate it. No, I'm just kidding. All right, I'm gonna toss the ball over to you if you want to give yourself some bio.
Sure. Yeah, man. I feel like the best way to describe my life is that I am somewhat a jack of all trades, master of none. So I currently live in Denver, Colorado, little suburb area called Cherry Creek. Pretty affluent. I can't afford to live here, but do somehow. I currently I work at a grocery store, but I mean, apart from that, skating has, as Corey was describing, has always been really ingrained in my life. That's probably first and foremost, like, my number one passion and motivation in life. And so that absolutely bonded Corey and I, and I've continued to be like incredibly invested in that community over the years. So if there's any way to describe me, I'm just a skateboarder who's 34, who's still skating at, like, I feel like a really high level for where I'm at, and to continue to try to progress is like really important to me. And so, but also like being able to impart, a lot of things that I've learned through my experiences in skateboarding to like newer generation, which has been a lot of the work that I did in the past. When I was in Nashville, I worked at a skate park called 6th Avenue Skate Park. It's one of the best skate parks in Middle Tennessee, if not the best. It's an indoor, and somehow got a job there and had keys and got to be, a mentor to kids, and to really be able to do some like real good. I feel like to impart some good on the world through the thing that I love. So, skating is just like such a huge part of my life, as Corey, was saying, and has been to this day. So, but like I said, I also wear many other hats, photographer as well. I've dabbled in filmmaking. I've made a couple short films that I'm really proud of. I'm a drummer. Corey is also a drummer. I'm actually in a music project right now as well. So I always have like these revolving sort of creative things going on in my life. None of them have stuck in terms of, say, like a career. But I think that's kind of beside the point now. It's like just kind of sustaining my happiness. And I'm excited because this podcast is another way to do that. It's like another outlet, another slice of me, to another slice of just a way to express myself. And then the things that I really delve into, like on a personal level day to day, which is watching movies and, all these things, watching TV and kind of just feeding my mind. Cause that's always been exciting, because Corey imparted that onto me, when we were younger, as I was saying, and as kind of he was saying as well, as our relationship developed, we were kind of getting to know each other and knowing that we both love movies and kind of sharing all those things and kind of enjoying comedies and stuff at first, like Tenacious D and like Dude, Where's My Car, and like these just really silly, shameful things that we watched as teens that we loved.
Shameful.
But it's really not. I'm joking, but those moments I think we cherish, because it was like those moments where you go to the movies as a teenager are like monumental. Like, I mean, that's an American pastime, is going to the movies, sitting in the dark with your friends and just cutting up or cackling. And Corey and I have, like, who knows how many countless hours we've spent in the dark watching movies, which is just awesome to think about. So yeah, it's like super integral to my life, and I know to Corey's as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good encapsulation of where, and we both studied film as well in college. And so we've both been really, really, well studied and well versed in this world. And I know it's something that we both love so much. And like I said, to have our minds both kind of pinging, and even with the creation of this podcast, like once we started getting the ball rolling and we kind of hit those little levels and hit the name, and like, then, you had these great ideas coming in, and it just started like feeling really exciting. Like, we have something special here, which we do, and I think that, like, yeah, I just can't wait for like to get the ball rolling even more. And yeah, I think that covers me pretty much.
And I think that leads into a good bridge to what we have planned, at least tentatively, for the future. So on our old show, one of the first things that we did that kind of really made us excited about the show, beyond just an opportunity to hang out with each other, our first dedicated episode was about Logan. And we went to see the film.
My favorite episode we did, honestly.
And then, yeah, it's still solid. I think
we hit it immediately when it came out. Like, we were
right. We saw it on opening night, and then went home and recorded
right after, and just had like really insightful like things to say. And I thought we like really nailed like what the movie was like trying to achieve. And like, I mean, James Mangold crushed it with that one.
Yeah, and I think so. Then we were kind of like, well, this could be, the show could be, when we center it around things, it kind of worked. So then we dedicated an entire month to one of our all-time favorite filmmakers, John Carpenter. Absolutely. And then those episodes were really great. We had our first guest, which was my wife was our very first guest on an episode about Big Trouble in Little China.
That was an awesome episode.
It was really good, man.
So much to like input, and so many insightful thoughts about. Yeah,
she brought her A game to that. I remember thinking,
I was intimidated.
Wow. Yeah, me too. So that's something that we want to do on the show for sure, is have dedicated episodes. But we want to kind of widen it a little. We talked about having episodes not just about directors, but actors and even composers, and not limiting it just to filmmakers. So we're definitely going to be doing that. Certainly looking at filmmakers, but also kind of pulling out a little and taking a hard look at some of the other people involved in the process.
Because they're 100% just as integral to, movies being as monumental and as impactful as they are. Like, all the departments it's an orchestra singing together, and obviously the directors are like highly, significant, but, there's so many great artisans that are a part of this that we want to highlight, and it's exciting that we're going to get into that. So, some of them deep dive into Mandalorian, kind of continuing on sort of our like love of Star Wars. I think probably something that we'll probably often do is end up talking about Star Wars, because it's like one of the main things, one of the biggest franchises that Corey and I have been obsessed over, that we flip out on new content that comes out, and The Mandalorian season 2 was just floored. I'm speaking for Corey a little bit here. Did you watch it, Corey?
Oh yeah. I mean, as it came out, I mean, it's what's funny is I actually, I was hesitating there because I was like, wait, is this going to get me in trouble? But I don't think it will. We have these days called flex days when we come back from a break, and the finale aired on one of those flex days when we didn't have students. So it was like the end of the day, and all of our Zoom meetings were done. And I actually watched the finale of season 2 in my classroom because I couldn't wait to go home.
That's awesome.
So yes, I definitely was right there when those came out. And I think that it's definitely something we'll talk about a lot, because as we're recording this episode, in this current world we live in, it's kind of a festival of delights. If you are a Star Wars fan,
we have a lot
fan. I mean, there's just
coming out.
And I think that'll be part of the conversation too. Is this sustainable? Is it okay to release this much stuff? But anyway, that'll be definitely a big part of some of the stuff we talk about. Because
so we might bring back that old segment from spoiler alert that might get resurrected, and we had our Star Wars sort of diversions. Where is that?
Our daily Star Wars diversion, right?
I plan myself on making more bold statements that hold no hold no water, no integrity.
Claim.
But like, that's something I also want to get into, is that like I had these bold statements that like these certain movies were like a part of the same universe. Like which one? I think I had one.
New York was a part of some other universe, right? Wasn't that the thing?
There was one that was a stretch, but I want to continue that thread as well.
But what the best part of them is that you just said it with absolute conviction every time. Like, this wasn't a theory. This is true. Okay?
I'm 100% certain I have the evidence.
So yeah, we're gonna bring back some stuff that we did on our old show. One of them for sure is something we called ticket stub stories, because as Zach mentioned, we've spent countless hours together in the theater, and we saved our ticket stubs. And I used to initial my ticket stubs with who I saw the film with. So what we would do on the show is I had them in a box, and we would just randomly pull one out and then attempt to remember the experience, and also a lot of times talk about the film itself, and it would usually kind of lead to other conversations. So we're definitely going to bring that segment back.
Fun thing that I think we could do in terms of like having audience involvement too, which I know we're going to get to that here in a little bit, but to kind of preface, I think it'd be great when we have guests come on, talk about movie experiences, theater experiences that were significant to them, sort of like their own ticket stub story. Like that way.
Absolutely.
So like, and I'm excited about, like audience involvement this time around as well. I know that that's something that we're discussing and wanting to like involve more guests, and sort of, it'd be fun to ask people just like their favorite, kind of maybe like a sort of laundry list of not a long laundry list, but like a few like questions about like, what's your favorite film? Who's your favorite director? These sort of minute questions, and then go on to like whatever the topic of our episode is going to be that week.
Yes, I think that's a great idea, because it's when you're listening to a show, it's always fun when they ask the guests the same set of questions. Like they always have a set of questions they ask guests, because then you can look forward to, what's this person's answer going to be to this question.
Exactly.
But then I also think whatever thing we do to kind of close out the show, whether it's a ticket stub story or whatever, definitely involve the guest in that segment as well, to get their stories. I think that's a great idea. So we're going to have an email address. I already have it set up, the secret cinema hotline at gmail.com. And that's pretty much just an open line of communication for our listeners. You can send episode ideas or thoughts, feedback, anything like that. We'll probably often prompt you for responses as well, around episode themes or just in general questions for the audience. I'm also going to be setting up a phone number, a Google Voice number, which is a literal secret cinema hotline, where you can text or call and leave me a voicemail with, same thing. It's the same. It's just another form of communication, but I thought that would be fun. Just like Zach said, we really want to involve people.
To be great and to hear them talk about movies and the things that they enjoy watching.
We want this literally to be a society feeling rather than just.
This secret society is pretty much the worst secret society because we want people to know that they're in. We want the secret out. The first rule of secret cinema society is you must talk about secret cinema society. Was a funny thing that I kind of thought the other day. It's an inclusive secret society.
Exactly. I think one thing we should do on the first real episode is maybe look up the definition to secret and then maybe rethink the title. Maybe we misunderstand what the word means. So I think hopefully you can tell we're both very excited about this show. We've got a lot of ideas and they're constantly coming out in various forms of maturity. But one of the ideas that this is Zach's idea, so I'm going to let him intro it. But it's something I believe we're going to be calling movie hypotheticals, and we thought we would close out our episode 0 here with one of those around one of our most favorite franchises. But I will let Zach explain in a little more detail here.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Corey. It kind of just, we've been coming up with these ideas sort of on the fly, and like one hit me as I was watching sort of a YouTube analysis, which is funny, of the C-3PO, but it was C-3PO and R2 jettisoning in the escape pod. And I think the line that hit me was like, C-3PO, they're, in the desert, and, he's just like being so pessimistic and negative. He's just like, oh, like, look at this desolate place. Like, it just goes on forever, and it's like, oh, whoa, like, what if they just got lost? Like, and then my mind started to go like, okay, well, like, what if that pod never made it to Tatooine? What might transpire? So, like, C-3PO and R2 are droids, so they're going to last quite a while, like, and C-3PO is just such a hyper, like, sort of nervous character that, like, I don't know, I feel like it would be like sort of, there would be some hilarity involved, but then also like, the other sort of implications are that R2 has the plans for the Death Star with him. So if that never gets found, how does that all ripple and affect the entire universe of Star Wars? And so that's kind of where this fun thought came out of like, oh, cool. Like maybe we can kind of just talk about movies from another angle of like, what if this happened? How does it affect XYZ for a character, for the plot of the film, for the narrative? And then kind of get to more of the dynamics of how narrative and character works and why these decisions are made and affect it. And it's just a fun way to talk about movies that is not, I don't feel like people always sort of utilize, I guess. It's sort of a device just to talk about films. And so, yeah, it's I think it's going to be a fun sort of thought experiment, and we'll see how this first one works out here. We haven't really like talked about this or like kind of really thought this through, like as far as like C-3PO and like that, but I don't know, Corey, what are your thoughts on sort of like that situation of like, if, that pod didn't make it to Tatooine, like what does the Empire continue? Like, do you think that they would have caught on, or like, what do you think would have happened?
Well, I think, first of all, I think this is, as you were saying, like the idea, what happens when you change one seemingly small but fundamental element of a plot, and then, kind of looking at the butterfly effect.
Exactly.
Starring Ashton Kutcher. To see how it, affects everything else. And I think that what we should do while you were talking, I think every time we do this, we should set up just a couple of ground rules as far as like what do we focus on. So first of all, I think we have to be really explicit about the hypothetical. So for us right now, the statement that we're saying is what would happen in Star Wars if R2-D2 and C-3PO missed Tatooine.
Yes.
Now, are you saying that they would be flying off into space infinitely forever and never get anywhere? Is that part of your hypothetical situation, or is it just that they missed Tatooine?
So my mind, well, that could be like a splinter of the hypothetical. Like that's a one what if. Like
Right.
would they eventually be found, or would they go on forever? You know, or do they get picked up by like a sort of space trash like compactor and then get
right? Well, I think just so we don't get bogged down in what could be a 7-hour conversation, maybe we just try to
you could go on forever in
as specific as possible. But then the other rule is, and this sounds like a simple one, but there might be an impulse to do this, that we keep it in universe. So we're not just like, and then Star-Lord shows up and Thanos blows up the Death Star, and suddenly
no. This is some
right in universe.
We're on the edge of fan fiction right here. Is what we're kind of.
So let's say then, let's be grim and imagine that the hypothetical is what would happen if R2-D2 and C-3PO, when they missed Tatooine, they flew off into infinite space to remain unfound forever. How would that affect the Star Wars universe? And that's our hypothetical. So
that sounds good. That's good. I think
the first thing to think of, let's think of it, maybe we can think of it in terms of characters. My immediate thought, I immediately went to Luke Skywalker. So
he's gonna be aware, or well, no, he's unaware at this point. Yeah.
Right. So this is what I'm thinking. So my thought, I don't know why I immediately went to this, but my concern or thought was, Luke's plan was to join the Academy, right? He wanted to join the Empire. Right. So his best friend Biggs had already gone, and he was desperate to go, right? And he had one more season.
Uncle Owen.
And he was just waiting on. He needed one more season, right? So let's say he waits the one more season.
Sure.
He goes to the Academy. He fights against the rebellion. Maybe because he's in the Empire, Darth Vader discovers him. But Luke has been indoctrinated, so he does join Darth Vader. And they kill the Emperor, right?
It totally flips.
Then here's where I think it could get really interesting. So imagine we've got dark side Luke at the side of his father, right?
Whoa, are you going to say what?
Who do we know that is in?
Oh my God,
Leia. The rebellion, right? That could be the central hero, right? It could center around, but also think about this.
Finds Leia and trains her once this all transpires.
Right, because Yoda said, remember, if Luke failed, there is another, right? So I feel like Obi-Wan would go to her. He would find a way to get to her, right? And then you've also got to think about if the attack run on the Death Star didn't happen the way that it was going to happen because Luke isn't there, Biggs would hear about Luke, right? If Darth Vader suddenly had a new right-hand man, Biggs would hear about his former best friend who has gone to the dark side and might make it a priority to be more active in like trying to find him. So you might have like a Leia Biggs thing going on because you've got Biggs who's passionate about helping his friend or at least stopping his friend. And then you have Leia who's being trained as a Jedi who also has the...
Maybe Han doesn't even show up in the story because the only reason Han shows... Exactly. So Han and Chewie are kind of like...
They would just continue on in their own adventures.
I love where you've taken this, the extrapolation that, and you're absolutely right. This is what would have occurred, is that Luke would have most definitely gone to the Academy, fought against the rebellion, and he would have gone to the dark side easily. He wouldn't have had the training of Obi-Wan to like sort of give him that fortitude to stand up against Vader and his father.
You wouldn't have been able to resist the temptation to the dark side. No. I don't think he had trouble anyway.
He was on the edge in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it's so exciting to think that Leia we would get to see a completely different version of both Luke and Leia. Mm-hmm. And that's just so exciting. I like want to see this in live action already. Like,
right. This gets so then exciting. You have to. So you would end up with this really, really dynamic, conflict between Leia and her brother and her father. But then you have to think, though, if Luke was ultimately right that there was good in Anakin, would Leia see that? And would she be able to bring that out? Would she be able to save Luke? Probably not. I don't know. but she probably
Well,
could
Luke would
maybe
probably
save
feel
Vader.
very betrayed finding out that he had. Well, I don't know. He found out he had a father too. He found out his father was Vader. So, I mean, it would depend. But yeah, I don't know. This is exciting
I
stuff.
mean,
This
we've
is
seen, how the dark side can cloud your thoughts and your
right,
rational thoughts with Anakin.
right.
So I think that the way that a dark side Luke would probably interpret the knowledge of his sister would just be like, well, there's another reason why the universe is broken and dark.
There's another factor in this that we haven't considered, and that's Palpatine. And in fact, I think that Palpatine might even do away with Vader, knowing that Luke would be an easier sort of Sith Padawan, or he would be an easier Sith Lord to train, and also be more powerful than Vader is, right? Wouldn't you think?
I mean, you have
Because
the
there can
option
only
of
be two. There can only be two.
malleable, right? That you've got a malleable apprentice here who you
Right.
can remold. Basically, it's ostensibly another Vader. Like
Because if that weakness is in Vader, then Palpatine is aware of it, and so
right.
he would not want that to be a factor at all. So I mean, and maybe
Yeah.
this is a race against the clock kind of thing, where Leia's trying to get to Vader and Luke before the Emperor can really like get his hooks in all the way or something. You know what I mean? Like,
But here's the second question. We have to think of it this way.
okay,
We have to get Leia to Obi-Wan. So Leia
So-
is on the Death Star and she is rescued by Luke, right? And Han and Obi-Wan. So would Obi-Wan
well, that's
find
the
a way off?
the
Would he
message.
still go to the Death Star to rescue
No,
Leia?
no, because the message is with R2.
Oh, right, exactly. Which we
So-
didn't even, which we haven't
So
even really
it
covered.
So Obi-Wan wouldn't have any way of knowing unless he just felt the presence of Leia, sort of like maybe the fall of Luke sends a ripple through the Force or something. And this is going to get sort of wonky because this is some Force shit, like right here.
The magic stuff, yeah.
But yeah, like maybe that's what happens is that Leia feels Obi-Wan feels this sort of fall. Maybe Leia does too, and like I don't know, maybe it's somehow. Maybe Obi-Wan's aware of. I mean, Obi-Wan's got to be aware of Leia, though. So if he knows, but just how does Obi-Wan even find out though without the Force being involved? That's kind of where I'm at. Is that like?
Because think of it this way: like when we meet Obi-Wan, Leia's already in trouble, right? And he didn't sense it, so
exactly. Okay,
he had to be told that she was in trouble via this message from R2. So. It would have to be. I think that something like Luke falling would be a big enough ripple that he might feel that and feel compelled to go out and do that. But then you have to think though, would Leia even be alive at that point? Because they're already torturing her for information.
That's what I was about to say. What if this torture sort of like brings her Force abilities to the forefront with like she's unaware of it, but what if it like in some sort of like maybe we're breaking a rule here, but in some sort of like Stranger Things sort of way, like she like kind of reveals to herself that she has the Force, if that makes sense.
Right. And obviously we would be talking now about something that would never happen, but when Rey sensed her own the extent of her powers when she was being mind tortured by Kylo Ren. I mean, we've seen that. Right. It's not unprecedented that pain can bring out latent power. But here's the other thing that we didn't think about here: the timeline. So, if the idea is that Luke joins the Academy, joins the Empire, falls to the dark side, joins Vader, he had to work one more season to get to join the Academy. So Leia would have been in the Death Star for a very long time, and who knows?
Maybe she would just be a prisoner for that amount of time.
Because you have to assume that the rebellion would have tried to stage some kind of a rescue. But
what if Vader? Okay, here we go. Here's how we get Obi-Wan and Leia, or maybe I don't know. Maybe I was gonna say, what if Vader seeks out Obi-Wan because he wants like a final confrontation with Obi-Wan? Because Anakin can't let it go that that's lingered, that Obi-Wan's still around, and like maybe he, if. Because does Vader know that Leia is his daughter as he knows Luke is his son?
Well, no,
You
he
get
didn't know about either one. I mean, he only knew Luke because when he saw him, right? Like it was
he
this,
felt it. So would he
it's
feel like Leia?
but he
Would he?
didn't know, Leia until Luke, in Return of the Jedi when Luke was weak and because he's sister.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So then, yeah. So he wouldn't be aware that she would even maybe have Jedi powers, or that. So here's where I'm going, is that maybe Darth Vader seeks out Obi-Wan, brings him aboard the Death Star, and somehow there's a fated meeting between Obi-Wan and Leia, and Obi-Wan discovers that, like, oh my God, like, you're the lost child that, we tucked away, like that, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we could make that work. So because we've seen Darth Maul went back to Tatooine for a final confrontation with Obi-Wan on Rebels. So that is a thing that, there's a precedent for Sith having a feeling that they need to, it's like their AA checklist. Number 5, defeat any old living villains or adversaries. So yeah, let's say then Obi-Wan is brought aboard the Death Star. Leia is still alive for whatever reason. They're draining her for information. Who knows? They have a meeting where Obi-Wan realizes who it is, and then then we have to get her. We've got to get her off the Death Star now too. And Obi-Wan at this point, I mean, he can sacrifice himself in the same way, but Leia would be all alone.
Unless he appears as a Force ghost immediately, like, and trains her Force ghost as a Force ghost, right?
Well, I mean, so you're saying she's still a prisoner and Obi-Wan dies. Is that what you're saying?
She doesn't escape. I see what you're saying.
Because how would she escape?
I know. But see, so here's another thing. Are we, like, trying to solve this to where it works out for, like, the rebellion to win, and or is it going to end badly? And does Leia, like, does it all just fall apart? Does the Empire win?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the thing that we're trying to figure out with this hypothetical situation is, could the rebellion still win without R2 and C-3PO?
That's really true.
That's
how integral they are to the plot.
Right.
And that kind of gets around to, like, why this is sort of a fun thought experiment, is that, like, just that minute aspect of those characters, R2 having those plans and that message, that's everything. And even if you take it to, like, Rogue One, all of that work to get those plans meant nothing. So that sacrifice meant nothing. It makes that movie even more tragic because they end up failing in the end, and R2. Yeah. So, like, I love this. I love this segment. I love this sort of thought experiment that we've done here. I think that, man, what an exciting sort of alternate reality we've kind of placed the Star Wars universe in, and just how fun it is to sort of extrapolate and sort of envision this sort of alternate movie that might exist had those two droids, R2 and C-3PO, just been lost to the void of space.
Yeah, I think the only thing what's interesting is it'll be so different for every movie that we try to do this for, because a movie like Star Wars, we really have to, when we're talking about that, we have to think about how powerful is destiny in Star Wars. Like, would the Force find another way to make this stuff happen? Like, is that, like, and then you have to of course every movie won't have that element, but
and that goes into, like, the sort of just, like, the Force is sort of this device that's utilized to create this message of, like, hope and sort of that
connectivity and all that.
Connectivity, absolutely. And so, yeah, how does that imply? What does that imply for the Force? Like, you're right. Does the Force sort of swerve? Because, I mean, I think even in the newer films, there've been these, like, subtle implications that, like, the Force is, like, working even outside of the Jedi, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
It's sort of swaying characters, and I feel like that's, like, felt in, like, Rogue One quite a bit, like, where you definitely know that, like, characters are way more Force sensitive than they, like, are aware of, and that the Force is definitely steering sort of, like, the fate of sort of the good the Jedi and the Sith and the light and the dark, and even kind of could go back to like the Duel of the Fates, when Qui-Gon and Darth Maul had their sort of, and how big of a implication that single fight had on the entire trilogy, and the entire sort of like prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, and sort of like the encapsulation of Vader's and Anakin's destiny to sort of be the chosen one, and then Luke sort of maybe filling in those shoes of like bringing balance to the Force.
Yeah, and so like I think that's the question with this movie is like what I think that would persist because that's kind of in the DNA of Star Wars. So then what would that look like? So like would we have now we've seen it's been canonized now that Leia did train as a Jedi. We saw that in Rise of Skywalker. So she has the ability to wield a lightsaber and do all the Jedi things, so that there's no reason why that couldn't happen to her earlier. So if the universe found a way to get Leia off the Death Star, whether that's let's say she is still a prisoner when Obi-Wan dies, then I think like you said, the Force Ghost could be the one that kind of trains her, gets her, figures a way for her to get out, and then once she's out, she could kind of pursue her training. But then because of the way the timeline works, at that point she would be at least, she'd be Jedi enough by the time Luke, when we were picturing his descent into the dark side, because you would think that most likely you would see Luke's latent Force abilities during his training in the academy, right? So you would wonder then, would that make its way to Vader? Would Vader get Luke that early? Or like, how would we get Luke and Vader together after the academy?
Sure. Does Obi-Wan send Leia to Yoda to be trained? Maybe that's like an element we're missing too. Does the Force bring Yoda back into this as well, since he's such a integral part of the Force? Just his entire being, I feel like, is connected with it. So do you think that Force, like somehow Leia gets, maybe with the help of Force Ghost Obi-Wan, Leia somehow is able to escape the Death Star, and maybe in a TIE fighter or some sort of mechanism, or some sort of device. I'm not sure how, but I want to figure out how to bridge that. But like maybe that's her next destination, is going to Dagobah. And sort of, since we've kind of sped these things, or does she go back to the rebellion to try to destroy the Death Star first?
Yeah, I think that's the question, because I mean, obviously their big plan was to destroy the Death Star, so that plan got ruined, right? So
right.
that would still, I think that would still be the principal threat to take care of first, because you can't continue to, the rebellion wouldn't survive if the Death Star persisted, right? I mean, it could just destroy all their ships.
I figured it out.
All right, hit me with it.
Figured it out. We're led to believe that R2 and C-3PO get lost in space. They actually end up on Dagobah with Yoda. Yoda gets the message.
Oh yeah, because that would be like the.
Or does that break the hypothetical? Does that break the hypothetical that like they can't? Can they not come back into it?
Well, I think that's what we said, but I mean, I think the Force is very strong. Okay, so and I believe that would be like the invisible hand of destiny aspect of the Force, where it could make it so it pushes them to Dagobah, because that would be really cool if Yoda gets the message, but then Yoda would be forced into action, and
maybe this is an interesting reverse of like the old master having to come out of being, you know what I mean? Like,
right. And so you're saying that Obi-Wan would reach out to Yoda as a Force ghost, or because how would he know about Leia becoming a Jedi?
Who?
Yoda.
Well, no. well, he wouldn't
So
know
Yoda's got
about
the Death Star plans.
and the message from Leia. So he's
Okay.
aware that Leia is trying.
Oh,
so
so you're saying Yoda. This is
delivers.
okay. This
He would
beforehand. That's what prompts Obi-Wan into action.
maybe,
And then you've got two Jedi dealing with.
seeing Obi-Wan team up and because so the
Then
message
it could be like a buddy comedy with Obi-Wan and Yoda. You know, it could be like Lethal Weapon. Riggs and Murtaugh.
I like this. Yeah, this is getting better and better.
Dude, but but it's more like grumpy old men than it is like Lethal Weapon because it's too. I know who you are.
Obi-Wan would just get pissed, like, you and the council, you got us into this mess. Like
he'd be, he's already so crotchety, and then I mean, so is Yoda. Gosh, that would be hilarious. That'd be like The Odd Couple, but if it was just both of the grumpy guys, where it wasn't like.
So are we saying that basically, Yoda gets the plans, see that the message is for Obi-Wan, then goes to Tatooine to say, yo, Obi-Wan, like, there's a crisis. We got to go spring into action and go save Leia, or is this too late to save Leia?
Here's the deal, too. Now, we have to, depending on when this happens, if this happens while Luke is still there, Obi-Wan would go get Luke. I mean, Obi-Wan's watching Luke. That's why he's there.
Okay.
Yeah. So if Yoda comes with this message, I think they would. Who cares about the droids? Like that's initially what prompted the meeting between Obi-Wan and Luke. Yoda and Obi-Wan would probably just go get him.
But they would also want to get the plans to the rebellion too, though, right? Or do you think that the Jedi would want to keep their hands out of the rebellion, like having those plans? Because that, you know what I mean? Like they're going to have the plans to destroy this Death Star, which the rebellion needs to find the weakness in this Starkiller planet, you know?
Maybe Obi-Wan would think Luke is safer if he's not involved, and they would just leave without him and go. And
I'm not saying that wouldn't happen either. Maybe they would still involve Luke, but I think like there's still the priority of the plans too, right? And so,
well, yeah, but that's what I mean is like, do they even bother with? Because that's a whole. Do they have time? You know, they've got these plans. Do they have time to go get Luke, convince him to come with them, and then you've got this other person saddled.
Or do they? So here's what they do. They're going to have to split up. So like Yoda's going to have to go to Obi-Wan and say, yo, this is finally going down. Like this, this stuff is bubbling up to the surface. We got to figure the twins out. So right. Yoda gives the plans to the rebellion. Maybe he goes to try to save Leia on the Death Star and maybe get struck down, and then Obi-Wan and Luke have to come rescue Leia, but this also dispels, like, this takes away from like Leia's sort of Jedi training and that whole like sort of aspect that we kind of
if we follow that,
a lot of different. We're kind of getting on.
Oh yeah, I know it. And this is what I was saying. It could turn into a thing. So we'll wrap this up in a second. Here's my last thought.
Yeah. I think this is like a really great stopping point because I think we'll
probably come back to this specific hypothetical.
I think we like really exercised it well, though. I think we took it to we almost damn near like wrote an alternate movie. I think in there, and then I kind of took a left turn with taking the droids to Dagobah, but that was kind of a fun thought. Like, what if the Force had this steering ability to bring that.
Let's bring it to a nice conclusion just to end this hypothetical. So let's say this could be how everything wraps up for episode 4. They go, Yoda gets the plans to the rebellion, right? And they have the same attack on the Death Star. Now, where did you say Obi-Wan was? Is he with Luke?
Yes, he would. Because like you said, I think, Obi-Wan has been sort of the overseer of Luke. You know, he's that's why he's still on Tatooine. So he would most definitely want to, but he does know that Leia is a Skywalker as well, so he's
right.
But
so I think that we maybe in this situation they stay on Tatooine, and in a sequel we'll see the training, blah blah blah. But he stays there to keep Luke safe. Yoda gets the plans to the rebels. They stage a successful attack, but while the attack is going on, they have some rebel troops go in, stage a daring rescue, rescue Princess Leia, get Princess Leia out, destroy the Death Star successfully. Yoda rejoins Obi-Wan on Tatooine, reunites the twins, and then they're trained together.
Whoa.
Credits roll.
Interesting. Takes out sort of the entire like sibling mystery pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it would be called Star Wars Twintasia.
There are twin sons. So
exactly. No, it's perfect. It's honestly a brilliant, really brilliant piece of writing. I'm very proud of myself.
So
George.
Lucas, here's another piece of fan fiction that you need to acknowledge. And you know, I know Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are doing you a lot of favors, but you know, Corey and I probably could write a pretty good.
I think you can tell this is better than anything they're doing.
Yeah, Mandalorian is pretty subpar
compared to Twintasia. Come on.
Twintasia. So it'd be called Star Wars Twintasia.
Star Wars Twintasia.
So
yeah, let's wrap it up. We did an episode 0. Hopefully this gives you a nice idea of just what the heck's going to be going on the show. Things will get tighter as we go, obviously. We're just kind of figuring things out. So we'll have more delineated segments, and
we're gonna have some new things. But I think a lot of what's exciting is we're gonna get to resurrect a lot of segments. So I think we're gonna bring a lot of experience to this. I think we're gonna have just a really strong podcast just straight away this time. I think we're going to build momentum quick because we already have cut our teeth, so to speak, on the first show. And I think we learned so much and really gained a lot of confidence that we really can carry a good hour's worth of conversation and it be interesting and entertaining. And so yeah, we'll see some old segments come back. We're going to have some like really fun new segments like these hypotheticals. That I think that was really successful. That was great.
It was a great first one for sure.
I really enjoyed that. I think that this was like such a great start to the Secret Cinema Society. And as we continue we're going to sort of work on our vibe and ambiance and create more of a sort of mystique surrounding the podcast as we develop this. So you're definitely hearing it raw bones right now, but it's very exciting. If you're listening to this, you're in on the secret. So you're in.
You're an inaugural member. Yeah, welcome. Also since this is the first episode, we'll also work out any sound technical issues that you might encounter with this first episode, with our first swing here. So
forgive us. I'm going to get a mic soon. I'm just straight away recording on a Mac or a Mac desktop here, but I think I'm going to look
using a Casio cassette recorder to record his audio and sending it to me in the mail. So if it sounds bad, that's why.
It's true. I definitely love analog. I'm just have such a affinity for the analog that I must record on tape.
He doesn't even own a computer. It's crazy. I don't know how he got his Casio Walkman connected to the internet, but it's pretty amazing.
I used a calculator.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we hope that you enjoyed this. We hope that you'll join us.
Yep.
Secret Cinema Hotline at gmail.com. Send us an email. We'll have a phone number next time you hear us. You can call or text that.
From you guys.
Yeah, we want to hear from everybody. We're going to have a really, really cool logo soon from a great artist.
Yeah, it's going to be so cool.
Blake from Loudmouth Threads. Big shout out to him. Check him out on Instagram.
Thank you, dude. Yeah, so stoked to see that.
Also, the music that you hear in this episode was created by the very brilliant Michael Taylor.
Hi, Mike.
Who is a friend of ours from Nashville.
I played music in a band with Mike for a hot second. So
yeah, he is a brilliant musician, and he's made some incredible music for us. So you'll hear that every episode.
Yeah, Michael, so sick.
We're just real happy to be here, and we hope that you'll join us every time we have one of these guys.
We're so glad you could stop by. See you next time.